This dream symbol moment focuses on water. Now, I know water is a very often dreamed about symbol, isn't it, Billie?
Yes, very much so. It's probably one of the most universal symbols there is.
And there's so many different ways to dream about water.
Yes, and it basically, water is something that we all need. And so everything living needs water in order to continue to survive. So the dream often illustrates water in different situations, whether it be stagnant or whether it be flowing or whether it be a leak coming from the roof. However, there's many, many different ways that water can show up. But quite basically, one of the things that I often think about with water is that people often go to the emotional layer, and that's very true. Water can represent emotion, definitely. But it also, on a much deeper layer, represents life force. Because, as I mentioned, everything living needs water to live. And also, I think of life source. So I think of life force and life source. Because if you believe all the evolutionary scientific information, we all came from the ocean. So I think it's that important of a symbol. It's life force and life source. So whenever it shows up in the dream, I think to myself, if it were my dream, where is my life force going? And how is that life force maybe being drained in a way that it shouldn't be drained? Or how is it leaking? Or how is it flooding me? All of these things. And then I say to myself, well, this is a very important symbol because the dream is giving me the illustration of how this is affecting my life and how it's either overtaking me or I'm depleted. And therefore, it's probably the number one symbol. And for everyone, it's cross-culturally. Men, women, children, doesn't matter where you're coming from. Everybody at some point in their life will dream about water.
That's pretty amazing. So emotion, it could mean our emotions, but I'm also hearing it's very significant in the way of life force and life source.
Yes, and what the condition of the water when it shows up. If it's a rapid raging river that's hard to say 3 times, rapid raging river, but if it overtakes me and I feel like I'm just being rushed down the river, then that in itself is part of the symbol.
Wow, okay. Well, I know that in a future dream symbol moment, we're going to talk about bodies of water. So for now, in this symbol, that's your general overview of water. And this is your dream symbol moment brought to you today by wakeuptoyourdreams.com. This dream symbol moment focuses on water, specifically bodies of water. Billie, there's lots of different kinds of bodies of water, from the ocean to small little ponds to streams and rivers and lakes. And I'm just wondering, how does that play in the dream? If we dream about the ocean, it certainly must mean something a little different than if we dream about a rushing river.
Right. Well, a lot of people dream about the ocean. And I think a lot of the reason that we dream about the ocean is it's a collective body of water. Not only that, it's also impossible to explore the entire ocean. It's very deep, and it goes on and on and on. So no one can actually ever see the entire ocean in a lifetime. So in that sense, it represents the unconscious on one layer because I can explore my unconscious, but I'm never going to know completely what's there. And on another level, it's also showing how we all share the oceans. Everyone from all over the globe knows what the ocean is and is influenced by the ocean. So in one level, the dream is trying to express this collective piece. And it depends a lot on how the person feels in the water, the dreamer. Does the dreamer dive in and feels perfectly safe and protected and okay? Or are they frightened and it's feeling like they're being pulled under the water? So as we mentioned, as we get into the whole water symbol, it's so very complex. it represents on one layer the emotional layer, but it also represents how does the person feel at that moment about a particular issue. And especially with oceans, it's got to be on a collective level in some way.
Yeah, that's really cool because you think about how the ocean, it's expansive. I mean, 70% of our planet is water. Mm-hmm. And much of that is ocean. And so would ocean also symbolize, if it's the collective, it also feels like it could be about connection because there's nothing that separates us then from our brothers and sisters across the planet by way of the ocean?
Very much so. And I think that's part of what the dreams about the oceans are trying to encourage, is how to not feel so isolated, for the dreamer to not feel so isolated, to realize that they are connected to the planet, they're connected to others through this. So the dream symbol comes in with the ocean to remind us of all of that. It's the place where all life began. The ocean is where all creatures crawled out of the ocean and became land creatures from. So it's the beginning of life. It's the cradle of creation. So there's a whole big piece in there about all of that.
That's pretty amazing. And, well, I'm a big ocean lover myself. So, and I dream about the ocean a lot. So that's interesting. And I know there'll be a lot of others listening that can relate to that as well. Mm-hmm. So now if we take that ocean body of water, which is so huge and expansive and collective, mm-hmm. and we come into some of the smaller bodies of water, like a lake mm-hmm. or a pond, how does that differ from that collective that we get with the ocean?
Well, it just gets smaller and smaller and more personal. So if I'm dreaming about a pond in my backyard, it has to do with a personal issue that I'm involved in. So the first layer, of course, has to do with emotion. What condition is the water? Is it clear? Can I see to the bottom of it? Is it stagnant? Is it full of moss and algae, or is it full of fish? Is it a beautiful lake? Is it a foreboding lake? I mean, how do I feel about the water when I see it? So there's that emotional layer, and it also has a lot to do with how I'm doing in my body. You know, if the water is not clear and mucked up with algae and everything, and I was working on that dream with someone, I would certainly go to a health layer too. And I would say, you know, maybe there's some need for cleansing, and maybe the dream is trying to show me how the condition of the water is. Because as we've mentioned, you know, water can represent the emotional layer, but it also represents life force. So what is the certain condition of my life force at this moment when having the dream? So we look at all those different layers.
Layers. It's so interesting and fascinating to me. Every time we have a conversation about dreams, I think one of the things that becomes more and more and more clear to me as we have these conversations together is the importance of working with a dream worker or a dream coach or within a dream group, because there are so many layers. I know we talked about that in the introduction. It just seems important to mention again, because just in bodies of water just now, how many layers did you mention?
That's very true. It's easy for us to try to fool ourselves and say, well, you know, I think I can figure out what this dream means. And we can get to a certain layer with it. We can say, well, all right, it's kind of like the analogy I use is like eating a piece of pie. And if we eat the top crust and we go, that was pretty good. But if we don't even get to the meat of it until we have someone else that can give a fresh look, we have to remember that the dream comes from the unconscious layer. It's stuff I don't know about myself in my waking life. It's like looking at the back of my head. It's impossible for me to look at the back of my head. But if I'm with someone else, they can give me a view of that unconscious layer that I couldn't have seen on my own.
Yeah, I can just see how that would be so incredibly beneficial and helpful in really discovering all the layers and the depth of the dream. So what about rivers? Because rivers is it's a body of water in a sense, but again, completely different than a pond, a lake, or the ocean.
Right. Well, rivers, of course, have a current that pulls us along. And so I often think about the river of time. You know, when a dreamer comes to me with a dream about a river, I think about how is this a dream about feeling the passage of time Am I flowing along in the passage of time, or am I working against it? So it all depends on the condition of what is happening in the dream. What's the action in the dream? Is the dreamer pleasantly floating down the Nile in a beautiful, a beautiful river barge, or are they, fighting, to keep the canoe afloat in the rapids, So
Right.
so it all depends on all that. But quite generally, a river for me would represent passage of time, and how am I working with that passage of time?
Very cool. Well, I think bodies of water it's a very, very fascinating dream symbol to talk about. And I know that you've expressed that water is absolutely one of the most dreamed about things. So I'm really grateful that we could talk about bodies of water, because I know that shows up a whole lot in people's dreams.
Very much so. Water is the number one symbol that I would say it's like the grandmother of all symbols. It's going to be there. It's always going to be there. It's something that we all can relate to, and it's something that we all need. And everything living needs water. So that's why I think it shows up so often.
Great. Thanks, Billie. Well, this dream symbol moment, Bodies of Water, is brought to you by wakeuptoyourdreams.com. This dream symbol moment will be focused on water in the house. Water in the house, Billie. So I guess there's several ways that water comes in and leaves the house.
Well, right. Dreams love kitchens and bathrooms. If you listen to as many dreams as I do, you'll notice that kitchens and bathrooms show up frequently. And I was always kind of confused about this at the beginning when I first started working in dreams. I thought, why? Why does it keep showing kitchens and bathrooms? And it has a lot to do with it. Well, that's where the water comes in. And that's, as you mentioned, that's where the water goes out. So the kitchen is where we bring in the water to cook and to go about our day, make our tea, whatever.
Do our dishes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a place of living, and it's very much of the heart of the home. So I think part of the reason that it shows, the dream likes to show the kitchens, is because, this is the place where the life force comes in through the pipes into the kitchen, and then we get to make the food or prepare the tea or whatever we're doing. And often people dream about leaks coming in through the kitchen, or the sink is stopped up, and then all the water overflows. So there's a hint in there about, am I paying attention to where my life force is going? Am I taking care of that? Is it in good repair? In other words, because, quite simply, the house represents the psyche. It also represents the body. So if there's a problem with the plumbing, I would take a look at my physical health, but also look at where am I wasting my energies or time somewhere? Is something getting clogged up? Is something getting not used properly? But then the bathroom, is a whole nother added piece to that, because that's where we cleanse and that's where we eliminate. So,
wow.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
Right. So it's sometimes working with dreams, it's really good to just look at the obvious. Just look at the symbol and keep coming back to the symbol. What is the symbol? It's easy to try to make it a little more. Of course, there's many, many more layers to it. But to really start out at the beginning, to just go, okay, I'm in the bathroom. What happens in the bathroom? Well, this is cleansing and eliminating. So if there's something wrong with the plumbing in the bathroom, again, I would first look at the health layer, and I would say, is it time for me to do some cleansing internally, quite literally. But then also it's about, what have I not been able to let go of, or what have I not been able to get out of my life and clean out of my life.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. That's when you said, what do I possibly need to let go of? That's what I was thinking, because certainly if we're cleansing in the shower, we're washing away maybe we think we're just washing away the dirt of the day, but perhaps it's about a whole lot more than that. I know that in a lot of cultures, there's ritual around that washing away. So it's interesting that it could show up for us that way in our dreams as well.
Right, and the dream often emphasizes that. So if a dreamer keeps coming to me again and again with dreams about bathrooms, then I would have to ask them, first of all, look at the health layer, but secondly, who is in my life that's not on my side? That would be the question I would ask. And what do I need to just get rid of and eliminate and cleanse, So that's why often people dream about kitchens and bathrooms. That's where the water comes in, and that's where the elimination takes place.
So would the kitchen maybe be, then if the bathroom is about what do I need to let go of, the kitchen might represent what do we need to bring in?
Well, sure, because, the kitchen, we take it for granted, but we do a lot of alchemical practices in the kitchen.
Yes, I'm very magical in the kitchen.
Right. So, just like something as simple as baking a cake, we take all these separate ingredients, flour and sugar and butter and everything, and we put it together and we make it into something very different. It starts out with all the separate ingredients and it becomes something completely different than what it started out to be. Well, we just go, wow, well, so what? That's just cooking a cake. well, the whole idea is that the dream is emphasizing that it's possible to take pieces of our lives and put them together and make it into something new.
Very cool. Well, I know that I learned a whole lot more about what it means for water coming into the house and leaving the house. Oh, yeah. What about if, there's a leaky roof or something? That's another way water can come into the house.
And that happens frequently, too. Again, the first place to start, because the house is a representative of the physical body, first place to start is to look at physical health. So if I dream of a leaky roof, then I would wonder about my brain and that, is my head okay and everything, because that would be first a health warning issue. But also it has to do with how things seep in places that they don't necessarily they shouldn't be seeping in that way. That's not what's supposed to be happening. I'm not supposed to be sitting in my home and having water falling on my head. So the dream is emphasizing that something is not in good repair, either with my psyche, where is it that something's leaking in, that I'm allowing negative thoughts to come in, or am I allowing, criticisms from other people to seep in, all those kind of layers. So it's very symbolic about something that's coming in at a layer that I don't wish it to be coming in.
And maybe something we don't recognize right away. A lot of times something is leaking in the house, something's coming in through the roof, and it maybe has done some damage already, but doesn't appear to us right away.
Well, that's true, too, because it is hard to track where water's coming from. And just in waking life, a lot of times we go, well, there's a leak. Well, where's it coming from? I don't know. So the dream might be giving me that image so that I can start investigating. Where is my energy going and how is it being wasted? Good, useful energy life force is not being directed in the proper way.
Thanks, Billie. This dream symbol moment, water in the house, is brought to you by wakeuptoyourdreams.com.